Happy Black History Month. My name is Melvin Isaac. I'm a certified producer at Brick Arts Medium, and also I'm a professional artist. The last time we spoke was educating the community, the world, about the Metropolitan Museum and all the stuff that was going on over there. Basically told everyone to schedule yourself, go to the museum, and you will see basically a lot of stuff about our ancestors, of who we are or who we was, and educate yourself on your history, your culture, your ancestors. So that was my basis start, and it went very well. I had a lot of reviews on it. People spoke on it on Facebook, YouTube, all these other different channels, LinkedIn, and just people see me on the streets. So they really, really want me to continue on with this. And I was basing it on to share this with the Brownsville community in Brooklyn, because that's my whole task, is to educate them folks out there, because that's where I'm originally from, and share that information to a lot of young kids, or even the family, about your history, who you was. Let's start from the beginning. This is not your language. This is not your land. This is not your culture. We were stripped of everything. Our ancestors were stripped of everything. We couldn't read or write. Their land, where we at, they took us away from our everyday lifestyle. So far as they concerned, we were just property. So everything was washed away for us. But now I'm showing you, educating you what happened and how we rebuild ourselves. And not only that, we was kings and queens of Africa, riches, unbelievable. And this who we was, and this who we are.
Peace, love, and light. Family, was good, does nation. Shout out to the gang, man, for real. Appreciate all you guys. So today's video is a topic that I got asked from a couple of people, including my father. I've been asked by subscribers on this topic, so I'm gonna try to make this one as quick as possible. And my hopes for this video is not to tell you what to think, but simply to spark a thought and evoke an emotion in you that's going to lead you down the path of searching, doing research for your personal enlightenment. Okay, so as I always do on this channel, I always tell you guys to do your own research and don't take what I'm saying for face value, but to come back to this channel and fact check me if I'm lying. Go do the research and go on a search engine that's not censored like Google. You can go on Bing or search engines like that. Also read accredited books from accredited scholars and researchers of multiple different backgrounds, not just European background. Okay, so the topic for this video is, you know, if Africans were so great, how did they fall? How did we fall? How did we become conquered? And how did we become at the, you know, perceived as the lowest of the low? Now, this is a good question. One thing I want to bring up is that African people are so diverse. There's not just one type of African. I said it before, there's over 3,500 African languages. There's multiple different backgrounds and tribes and things of that nature. Now, if you observe North Africa in modern day time, you'll see that they're not even black. They're heavily mixed, descendants of Romans, descendants of Greeks, descendants of Spanish, descendants of, you know, Eurasian people, right? And so one thing that I want to bring up is the African people, and by African people I'm talking about Kemetu, which translates to black people, or Memphites, Thebians, Cushites, which translates to literally people like me. We were avid travelers and avid traders. Okay, it's no secret anymore that we already, you know, traveled across the whole world prior to what they tell us in 1492, Christopher Columbus finding the New World, when it was already inhabited by African melanated people. In fact, the first island that Christopher Columbus went to when he went on his voyage was to the island of Hispaniola, which is modern day Haiti and Dominican Republic, and he actually had the help from an African that had to show him how to get there. And when they got there, they were met by the Taino natives, and they had these gold coins and gold pieces. And when Christopher Columbus and of course his people asked them, where did you get these gold pieces, they told them that, oh, there were these other, you know, Africans that came that brought this here in good fellowship and left these here for us. And so when we understand that, we can understand that Africans were always traders. They were eager traders. And so when the Eurasian came over to the border, coming as, you know, traders, it's not something that happened, you know, like that. It took time as the Africans got, you know, a little bit more familiar with the Eurasians. You know, they started to bring their beliefs with their trades and their products. They started to bring their beliefs with their trades. They started to, you know, eventually send out missionaries. And we have to always be wary of missionaries because it's right in the word. They're on the mission, right? And so what happened was, as these Eurasians made it deeper into the African territory, they started to observe the actions and study them, right? And so they would go back to their kingdoms and their land, and they would tell the stories to the people about, oh, how they had all these resources, and they're sort of primitive in a sense because they're not using their resources for the masses to outsiders, but they were rather just keeping them there, kind of like preserving. Like, we used all the gold and the copper and all that stuff, but it wasn't to a point where, you know, we were exploiting the earth, because we were on one accord with the earth vibrationally. And so what started to happen is, as the Europeans started to get more into African soil and territory, of course they brought ideas, and things started to change. Certain Africans started to adopt different ideologies of those people and things of that nature. And so as that started to happen, you know, slowly but surely, they started to get conquered. Now, Africans, yes, we had great armies, we had technology, despite what they tell us, but it is, from my belief, based off of my research, you can feel free to disagree and go do your research. I believe that we were ready for war with tribes like ourselves. We had our spears, we had all of these different things, especially guerrilla warfare tactics. But I do not believe that we were ready for people that had guns or stuff like that. So we were ready for warfare with tribes like us. But I believe what happened was, through many different avenues, they were able to come through and conquer. One of those avenues was religion. They were able to bring in their you know, Muslim, Christianity, things of that nature, because we must remember that Arabs are Caucasoid type of people. There are Eurasian people, and they still follow the age-old tradition of covering their face from the scorching sun. Now, as I always tell you guys, you know, as a scholar, I never want anybody to believe a word I'm saying, but to just go do your own research. And so what happened was, a lot of people don't know that before white Europeans, you know, white Caucasians enslaved Africans, we were enslaved by the Arab Caucasians. Yes, they're Caucasians, okay? And so that was the first thing that happened. So they brought their beliefs and their religion, and we started to disassociate ourselves with who we once were. And I always talk about how the #1 law of an African is to know thyself. So if we don't know thyself, if we don't know who we are, we're going to fall. This is actually one of the 48 laws of power. Is if we get put in isolation and we don't know who we are, and we're, you know, disconnected, we will be conquered. And so what happens was, as these Eurasians started to come in and intermingle with the population, they started to breed. And this is where we have the mulattoes. This is where mulattoes come from. Now, in the US and other places, there's something called the 1-drop rule, which means that if you have an ounce of African blood in you, you are considered black. In Africa, especially in Upper Africa, North Africa, where we can observe that the population is pretty much white, it was the complete opposite. The offspring of the conquerors that were mulattoes, that had white blood from their patriarch clan or patrial lineage from their dad's side, they were viewed as white. Even though they were, you know, half and half, they were viewed as white. So they were viewed as a superior race, and they started to adopt those thoughts and ideologies. And so what happened was, as time went on, the half-breeds, so to speak, started to mix with other whites, other half and halves. And so they literally at one point became more Eurasian than they were African, because they bred it out of them. And so now this is why you can observe people in Morocco and Egypt, and you can look at them and be like, they're not black, like they're so mixed. They look very interesting, but they're more European or Eurasian than they are African. And this is why. And so with the mulattoes being perceived as upper class, you know, and you know, superior, they used the mulattoes to conquer Africans like myself, dark-skinned, black, Kemetu Africans. Now, don't get me wrong, there were mulattoes that identified more with the African heritage and, you know, identity, that actually fought against the Eurasians coming in and conquering and raping, enslavement, and colonizing. But the majority of them chose to take their privilege as half and half, but be perceived as white and superior. And so you take that and you understand that with that mindset, with that cancerous mindset, they were able to impress upon the people through religion and other force tactics that they were inferior, that they had to worship this God, that they had to worship that God, that they had to denounce all the spiritual practices of their ancestors. And so you do this for hundreds and hundreds of years, and you have where we are right now. It's a lot more deeper than that, but I wanted to make it more simple, and I didn't want to make it too lengthy for the purposes of this video, but I wanted to kind of summarize it all for you and make it quick. So thank you for watching this video. If you have any comments, make sure to comment down below, and let's get a healthy adult discussion going on. And as I always say, don't believe me, go do your research and come back here and fact check me. It is not my job to make you research or make you believe me. I'm just here to make you think a little bit and do the research. And so when you observe history and you observe how we were able to be infiltrated by trade, religion, missionaries, and things of that nature, and be conquered from our own, including mulattoes that had our blood but that were not fully us, you can understand how we became conquered, especially with us not even all speaking the same language. We spoke many different languages, and so This is why I always bring up the story of Haitians. They took many different slaves from many different tribes and areas and brought them to the island of Hispaniola, and it took Haitians over 150 years to create one language they could understand, Creole. And then once they could all speak and were on one accord, they were able to successfully revolt and kill over 50,000 Frenchmen to create Haiti, aka the Kingdom of Haiti, and you know, become the first major successful black independent republic. All right, and so that's all for this video, family. If Africans were so great, how did we get conquered? We have to understand this. All right, so stay blessed.
So I'm bringing this back to the world because this is it's not being taught in school. They will not allow this being taught in school. What happened to us? You won't see that. You won't see that. But I'm giving it to you now. I do a lot of pop-ups through my series of artwork to share about our history, and that way you would know it. So now is at the Brick Arts Medium is this platform they gave me where I can reach millions and millions of people through this. And that's what I'm doing now. Okay, so that was the first part that I was sharing with you about the Metropolitan Museum. And it was based on sharing this with our folks out here in Brownsville, Brooklyn, because I want them to get educated. And some of them will be coming up here soon. And I want them to, because they do a lot of rap and dancing and graffitis and stuff like that. So I want them to look at this, what I'm doing, educate yourself about your history, and start rapping about it. That is my mission right there. Because if they start rapping about it, they actually educating the people around them about their culture. So they would see about who we was before and how rich we are, how rich we was, and how we've been stripped of everything. So that's what I want them to do. Look at this situation right here and turn this around, because you got a lot of people that's singing, dancing, all that stuff, but they ain't talking about their history, about their culture. All you be hearing is the other stuff. So we want to share some positive stuff in their head that is not being taught in school. All right. So now the next thing is that we're doing, or I'm doing, is sharing with you is about the next step. The next step is to visit the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. So let me give you a read up on that too, because there's a lot of stuff I'm ready to hit you with, and some filming. That way people can see that not only me going to educate you, other people going to educate you as well. So I'm really my suggestion that everyone is to visit the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. So I'm going to share that topic with you. I want you to see that. I want you to go there and see what's going on. And you will learn. Oh, you will see everything there. And I want to come back with something else about how we got here, because somebody else going to be talking about that. And the last stage is that the richest person in Africa, and this is going to be Mansa Musa, the 14th century African king of Mali Empire, is widely considered the richest person who ever lived. So all this richness you see people having here, and they figure they got it all. No. You better study your history, because once you know who you was and how rich you was, and this person right here is going to educate you on a black person. His name, look it up, Mansa Musa. Oh, that's going to come up. All this stuff going to come up. Matter of fact, let me bring some of that up now. There you go. That person right there. And actually, I got a slideshow on a lot of these stuff, but this is it right here. Okay, that person right there, Mansa Musa. So you're going to learn everything about him as well, and all these positive things that we was, because a lot of people don't know. They ain't going to teach you all that stuff. So I'm sharing that with you, and you're going to realize who these people are, which is your people, your culture, our culture as black people, and they're going to share with you. So now let's go back to, let's start. And even that, we're dealing with the most powerful black queen. It's another thing. See, we dealt with the king now. Now we're going to have a most powerful black queen. And you're going to learn about that too. So let's do this right. And I want to tell you, once you get all this out the way, be surprised how your concept about what's going on is going to change. It's going to change. So there we are. I'm bringing down to different things that I want y'all to see, and we're gonna come back with the other filming of other people that's going to be sharing with you is another topic. So I'm glad that y'all is here with me. So this way I've been sharing this with you. So like I said, the first one will be a filming of the journey to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. That's the first topic and the first journey that you're going to be seeing. And again, happy Black History. And Black History is every day. We celebrate it because that's who we are. It's just they giving us these days here. But you got to know your history every day. Every day. Okay, so the first video, like I said, is you're going to see it coming up in a few minutes. And it's a production filming of the journey to Washington, D.C. And within that, it's going to be sharing the experience about the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. So you're going to see that. And that's coming on right now.
I ended up getting into the African American History and Culture Museum for free. So I will take you guys through.
Anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours, depending on how many people we have coming in here and depending on how this day progresses. It's usually easier in the morning, but who knows. All right. So what happens there is you get into an elevator and you take it to the lowest level of the museum, which is level C3. That's 75 feet below grade. So a huge portion of our museum is actually beneath. So it's almost the same size as you can see from the outside. And so what happens is you'll take the elevator down to the lowest level, you'll get off there and you walk through that section, which is 1400 to 1877. It's chronological history, okay? And it will encompass 3 floors. We will use a ramp, we will walk up the ramp to each of the 3 floors, and eventually you come right back out on the concourse level, okay? Now, the portion of the museum you see above from outside is maybe more of like the cultural section, so think of like history downstairs, culture upstairs.
Museum. We're going down to the ground level first. Now, the history of the African American History Museum is set up in a chronological order. So it starts in the bottom and then you work your way up. It's deep. Start from the bottom. So this is Lori. We met in line upstairs. I feel like we bonded. We were in line so long together.
She's so cute.
Thank you, Lori. Where are you from again, Lori?
I'm from Menlo Park, California,
Okay.
Silicon Valley.
All right. Shout out to Lori. So, things you should know before you come to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Alright, so number one, whatever time is on your ticket, that is a tentative time. It does not necessarily mean you're going to get in at that time. Number two, once you get in, there is another line that you have to wait in to get to the first exhibit in the bottom, the slavery part. So you go down the escalator and then there's a wait for maybe 30-45 minutes. And this is when the museum first opens. So you should be very aware of that. If time is of essence, you have to plan accordingly. So anyways, I will update you guys some more.
Death to a life of misery and jump into the sea. The closeness of the place and the heat of the climate added to the number and the shape, which was so crowded that each had scarcely room to turn himself, almost suffocated us.
And at the same time, a grasp around the neck. All of us were put into the castle and kept for market.
The despondency which seizes their spirits when thus confined soon becomes fatal.
fight for the Patriots. Black patriot Boyro Branch remembered, thus was I a slave for 5 years fighting for liberty. Whether in segregated or integrated regiments, black soldiers served in pivotal battles. On both sides, they faced
Free African Americans were required to carry freedom papers or wear badges that identified them, or they risked being kidnapped and sold into slavery. They responded to discrimination in different ways. From the impassioned cry of Henry Highland Garnett and the radical voice of David Walker, who encouraged violent resistance, to the global vision of John Rusborough, who supported immigration to West Africa, the debate over how to best manifest.
They risked their lives, even though they faced harsh discrimination. Susie King Taylor, a union nurse, remembered. The first colored troops did not receive any pay. Finally, the government decided to give them half pay, but the men would not accept this. They wanted full pay or nothing.
I am now leaving the lowest level of the museum, the slavery and freedom section. I'm now going up to the next section, which is defending freedom and defining freedom. It's the era of segregation. So the way the museum is set up, I think I said it earlier, it starts at the very bottom and then it shows the progression of the African American culture, the African American history, started from slavery. Mind you, this is African American history, and it starts from slavery and it goes all the way up to the, where we are now. So just a recap, it did talk about, or it did touch base on where you started. So it starts with being in an African country. It progresses to the Middle Passage. It goes on to slavery. From slavery, it goes on to the Revolution War, and all of that. And then we are here on level C2. Defining freedom. So this part is the civil rights movement part, and whenever I go to exhibits with this particular era, it's a little bit more, I don't know, it gives me a little bit more goosebumps because I guess because it seems so recent, because it's like the time period when my mom was around. Anyways, I will take you through this section next.
Come here, Morgan.
If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving.
Three Unitarian ministers who were beaten about an hour or so ago. One was so brutally beaten that he had to be rescued from the hospital.
in defense of the machine. Randolph called the event off, but the seed for a march on Washington had been planted. During World War II, to highlight the irony of black troops fighting for democracy abroad,
Don't cut your steps like a positive fit.
LED now. Return
So I'm about to leave the lower level. It was basically the progressions of African Americans from slavery, you know, via like Africa. You go through the Middle Passage. You go through all that slavery, sharecropping, just pretty much the progression of African American history, like as a whole. One of the things I really enjoyed about this exhibit was that not only did it show the good, it also showed the bad. I mean, obviously. Next, we are going to the street level. So you can explore. There's the community galleries and then the culture galleries. And I'm not exactly sure what those are. I guess we'll have to see. To explore more areas seems really interactive. This is Miss Pullins. I ran into her. I told her I was vlogging and she is giving me some advice. You can go ahead, Miss Pullins.
Okay, I was just explaining to her how awesome it is to have this history that we have now, right now, that's been recorded. But I was explaining to her that I'm passionate about the fact that our younger children, and especially our contemporary millennium age people, understand that you really need to go back and find out your real history. This is not your real beginning. This is the beginning of your life in slavery. But your real beginning is in Africa, where you created the pyramids, where there were great kings and queens like Hannibal. And do your homework. Go do the research. Find out about Hannibal. Find out about the good kings and queens of Egypt. Find out about Nefertiti, how that she was black and beautiful. The essence of beauty. So find out who you are. I love you.
All right, so now I'm glad that you'll enjoy watching the filming of Washington, D.C. And please, please, please go there. Make some kind of schedule, the weekend, the weekday, whenever you could, and go to the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. with your folks, your parents, your mother, sister, brother, cousin, uncle, niece, people in the neighborhood, the whole community, schools, but please take them there. And once you got that education, now you got to understand a better grip of who we are and what happened. So my next one would be the Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa, we're going to be talking about the 14th century African king of Mali Empire, which everyone consider him widely considered as the richest man or person who ever lived. And we got to see that. You got to know that. So,
Mansa Musa, Emperor of Mali during the 14th century. Richest man of all times. Mansa Musa was ranked the richest man of all time. He is famous for his pilgrimage to Makkah, during which he showcased his wealth to the cities he visited. Mansa Musa was possibly the richest person ever to live. He had so much wealth that people say it cannot be counted. Mansa Musa was the ruler of the Kingdom of Mali in West Africa. In the early 14th century, his kingdom was one of the richest, spreading far beyond Mali, across West Africa. Many have written about Musa, including Ibn Khaldun and Ibn Battuta. People realized the unbelievable wealth of Musa when he set out for Hajj. In 1324, Musa set out with over 50,000 of his people and servants. They carried thousands of kilograms in gold on camels and elephants. When Musa reached Egypt, he met the Sultan. Musa was asked to bend his knee in front of the Sultan, but he refused. He said that he could only do that for God. Musa was a deeply religious man. In Egypt, he and his caravan gave away so much gold that Egyptian gold's value collapsed. It took 12 years for the value of Egyptian gold to recover. News of his riches traveled to Europe. The Spanish created a map of West Africa, showing Mansa Musa sitting on his throne with a lot of gold. He became the symbol of enormous wealth. However, Musa also used his wealth to do a lot of good. Every Friday, during his pilgrimage, Musa would order the building of a mosque wherever he was. On his return, he brought scholars, engineers, traders from North Africa and Andalusia to develop Mali into an important cultural center and place of learning. Timbuktu became a very famous city for Islamic learning and cultural capital. You may have heard of Timbuktu being used to describe a place far away. Now you know where this city actually is. Many of the mosques Musa built still exist today. Musa was not only a symbol of wealth. He was also a generously religious man who wanted to educate people and spread Islam's true teachings.
And this comes to our conclusion of our final chapter episode of what we're doing here. And it's mostly the summary of why we here, what we're going through. So basically, we summarizing everything. I want to leave you with a positive thought too, as well with that, because a positive thought, what you see the background is that who we was, kings and queens, empire rulers, and we continue being that. So always think about when you see your next brother or sister and educate them of who their ancestors. You'd be surprised how people don't know. Because once they strip about your knowledge and your mind, you won't know. Keep you in the blind and black spot. You won't know. So